Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a huge collection of videos for you to binge watch. And I upload 2 new videos usually per week with a live stream each week as well. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button below or backing me on Subscribestar or Patreon, where you can access all of the scripts I write for these vids if you prefer to read what I'm saying. I also have a Discord server with an active community and of course subscribe to the channel. Returning to the Nine Hells, today we cover the Spinagons, also known as the Spined Devils, and in case you wondered, yes, I do listen to heavy metal music while writing these scripts, pretty solid run of Deathclock on this one. Although the Spinagons are lesser devils, one of the first forms of fiendish existence beyond the transformation and promotion of a wretched lemure, they are true devils and afforded some of the respect each devil has for another. However, Spinagons are notoriously annoying, cowardly, conniving, and duplicitous. They are said to be covered in spines, but not to have an actual spine. They do have a set of actual backbones, it's just a figure of speech. They are the vermin of the Nine Hells, effectively. They're as close as you can get to the lowest of the low of the devil hierarchy that's not a lemure. The selection process for promotion from lemure to either imp or spinagon is based largely on attitude. The imp and spinagon are both small, agile flying devils who are adept at relaying messages and getting around without attracting a lot of attention. The imps are more independent and take more initiative. They will actively involve themselves and are selected for their strength of will, allowing them to master the taxing abilities of shapeshifting and turning invisible for extended periods of time. The spinagons are selected for the caution, observational skill, and, well, lacking the special abilities of the imp to master more complex abilities, so they basically just get busted down to spinagon. Spinagons are more common than imps, but their population is concentrated in the first 4 layers of the Nine Hells. They rarely venture into Stygia or beyond unless they have been directly summoned to Nessus, in which case they skip the other layers anyway. Imps and spinagons generally don't get along terribly well, but the spinagons have strength of numbers in Avernus, Dis, Minoros, and Phlegethos. Even more reason not to venture further, where individual spinagons can get bushwhacked by a group of imps pretty easily. If each devil form is designed to teach a lesson about being lawful evil, the spinagons learn that there is relative safety and strength in teamwork, no matter how evil the individual. The law of the group is paramount, but there's another lesson that they learn, and I'll get to that later in this video. Fiendish Codex 2, Tyrants of the Nine Hells for 3.5 edition, tells us that spinagons are very much like vermin. They infest the Nine Hells, they crawl about the rocky wastelands or lurk in the shadows cast by the massive palaces and buildings of the infernal cities. They creep about and are always underfoot, constantly hunting for something or someone to hurt. Spinagons are the bane of lemures and nuperibos, venting their frustration about their lowly status on these hapless fiends who they are only one rung above, but oh what an important rung on the ladder that is. In the crowded and bustling Iron City of Dis, the spinagons flap about like pigeons. They crowd the favourable perches on spires and ledges, screeching and jabbering at each other like raucous parrots. Unlike parrots, these creatures carry weapons, not just in the bristling spines that sprout all over their body, but also forged metal military forks cut down to a mere 4.5 feet long, but wickedly sharp and barbed. With a few spinagons get into a serious brawl with each other, the ringing of metal weapons and their high-pitched shrieking voices is enough to give anyone a headache. It is such that most higher-ranking devils would simply tear any spinagon apart that got too close and said a single damned word to them. Another reason the spinagons rarely go into the deeper hells. The exception is when they have the very rare opportunity to serve one of the archdevils as scouts and spies, a task with a very high chance of them being destroyed within the Nine Hells, or an opportunity to go to the prime material plane back to the world of the living. But if an archdevil is sending them, it's certainly going to be for a very dangerous reason. Both prospects are terrifying for the spinagon, but it is one of the few avenues they have to a quick promotion up the ranks to that of an imp, or perhaps for spinagons of extraordinary age and experience, they can be promoted in the form of the dreaded Bone Devil. Some of the very powerful and influential Ice Devils started out as Spined Devils who became Bone Devils and then basically used the secret knowledge they had gathered over centuries of the internal politics of the Nine Hells to manipulate and command their way into the tactical elite of the Batezu forces. Spined Devils are more comfortable flying than they are scampering around on the ground. They are relatively feeble compared to most devils. Even though they are stronger than an imp, the imps are more agile and have better stamina. Plus, they can turn invisible and shapeshift, easily evading the spined devils who would otherwise bully them any chance they got. Imps also find it much easier to foster allegiance with other stronger creatures, which the Spinagons most certainly have no proficiency at. They basically just screech at them until they get their attention. They can barely hold their own mobs together as it is. Like other devils, the Spinagons have total immunity to fire and poison. They don't often have access to potent poisons, but when they do, they will coat their carried weapons with it. They are experts in aerial combat and there are some tactics they employ that are worthy of mention if you read between the lines of their stat block. Their ability to make a flyby attack, where they can move into and out of an enemy's reach without provoking an opportunity attack, can be used without limit. They not only make use of their regenerating incendiary tail spines, which replace themselves at a rate of 1 spine per 2 hours, or a full set of 12 after the devil finishes a long rest, but also their fork weapon, or any number of wicked light weapons they can carry while on the wing. Javelins, shortened spears, picks, barbed nets are also used, as well as darts and daggers they can throw with the same accuracy as their spines. They have a fairly formidable set of sharp fangs in their mouth that can hinge open quite widely. They love to tear a chunk out of the enemy, but will not put themselves at risk of an easy retaliation if they can help it. So although it says they can make 1 bite attack and 1 with attack with its fork weapon, or 2 with its tail spines, they can also make a fork weapon attack and a tail spine attack. While in flight, they reserve their bite attacks for when they are swarming over an enemy in a group and gleefully tearing it apart like a pack of winged piranhas. They will not engage willingly an enemy in melee combat alone unless there is no way to escape it. Attacks with their bite or handheld weapons are +2 to hit. The bite does 2d4 slashing damage, so they don't so much chomp, more like shred and tear. They have +2 to hit with any weapon. The fork inflicts 1d6 piercing damage and an additional poison that might be applied. You can also effectively power dive and slam into the enemy like a lance, doing an additional 1d6 damage from the velocity of the blow. They lose the weapon in the process, leaving it behind them as they swoop by on the wing. They much prefer to keep a comfortable distance of 20 feet or more, hurling their tail spikes, each of which is +4 to hit and does 1d4 +2 piercing damage, plus an extra 1d6 fire damage, as they burst into flames almost the moment they're plucked from the Spinagon's tail. Spine devils rarely speak the common language. They speak infernal and use telepathy by preference. They have the usual magical resistance, as well as resistance to cold, and all non-magical weapon attacks. They also suffer the resistance bypassing weakness to silver weapons as well. Spinagons mock their victims and enemies constantly. Hell, they mock their friends constantly. They can mimic the cries and wails of those they are fighting or torturing, but the words get garbled and thickly accented by their infernal inflections. They're not stupid creatures. They constantly have their eyes open for opportunities to gain power and promotion. All devils do. And while they can be beaten and tormented or magically compelled to betray their masters or fail to perform their duties, they are lawful beings who, once they agree to do something, simply will do it. Higher ranking devils can quickly gain the loyalty of Spinagons with promises of power and promotion. And remember, promises amongst devils are ironclad, or simply ready access to victims for the Spinagons to torture. They will fixate on this outcome quite a lot, because their situation as spine devils is fairly miserable, so they engage in these deals with a degree of desperation that's kind of sickening to watch. Those who make use of them know that spine devils are not as capable of discerning the nuances of their orders or the finer art of espionage, so they're smart, but they're not that smart. So they are great agents for simple tasks. When told to gather information, though, they will just gather all the information they can, including all the irrelevant stuff. Much better to put them to a task of sabotaging some siege engines or something like that. They also don't carry much by way of fancy trinkets and wealth, because it just causes them to get picked on by their own kind, and most likely an imp will just steal it all anyway. The oldest and most experienced Spinagons will learn spell magic, in which case they can cast Produce Flame, Disguise Self, Stinking Cloud, and Cause Fear. Wiser Spinagons will also seek to raise the alarm and seek out stronger devils to deal with enemies. They rarely even get into fights among themselves which are in any way fair. If they do spot the opportunity to deal harm to another, they almost always take it, and really that's the reason and the lesson they must learn in order to gain promotion within the Nine Hells. It's best to succeed early and avoid the trouble of dealing with the in-betweens. They don't have the personal power or resources for a protracted fight. The only real chance is to ambush, overwhelm, and assassinate. Get the job done. There is a chance, particularly when working in the service of an archdevil and therefore probably under direct observation of Asmodeus from some remote location as he keeps a beady eye on all of his underlings, or just because their efforts have caught the attention and raised the curiosity of a higher ranking devil, that they may be almost spontaneously promoted, even in the middle of a fight. That would certainly make for a spectacularly gruesome event during an encounter, don't you think? The possibility of them just spontaneously being promoted and effectively renewing as a brand new monster. If not performing espionage or delivery, they act as skirmishers and aerial artillery in Hell's legions. This is a role they don't much enjoy, but again, it's one of the best bets for promotion on the battlefield, replacing fallen soldiers. Faces of Evil, the Fiends, tells us that the speed with which a Batizu's armies are marshalled is an important signifier of status, learning that your troops are to move first, meaning that important figures have their legions first and minor individuals get theirs last. Because of this, Spinagons serving under middle-class Batizu often find themselves under heavy pressure to quickly assemble armies for the benefit of their masters, sending their messages out quickly. This pressure also comes from the fact that Spinagons in particular receive promotions based on the ratings given by their masters, so they're under constant duress. The station of Spinagon was the first in which a devil had to learn a lesson, as it was the first time it had some determination over its own fate. Through this method, Spinagons serving under a gelugon or pit fiend could find themselves suddenly at the status of Hamatula or Amnesu, depending on their track record so far. That would have to be a spectacularly good track record to get that sort of promotion though. The most likely promotion, however, was that of an Abishai, where with those that showed a noticeable lack of ambition undergoing the worst promotion possible, the form of the Black Abishai, which indicated that the former Spinagon wasted its potential while serving in the legions of hell. To give you some idea of how small the Spine Devils actually are, they have been known to hide inside the skin of a large cat, sneaking into towns, villages and castles, looking just like another overfed, somewhat bedraggled, wild feral cat, assisted by a little magic to reduce their bulk a bit. When encountered in the Nine Hells, Spined Devils collect in flocks of 2 to 5 to gain the benefit of numbers. They shift and change between these groups. They're not in no way loyal to each other. The circle flies overhead, raining down a fiery barrage. Against hard-to-hit targets, they close to within 30 feet, just far enough out to reach to prevent land-bound melee attackers from striking back at them. Should the battle turn against them, they use Stinking Cloud to cover their escape and flee, alerting tougher devils as to what happened and where the bad guys that hurt them are. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Subscribestar or Patreon for all the full scripts for these videos, buy some Teespring merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening and I'll be back with more for you very soon.